Welcome back to Her Secret Diaries, a place where truth hides behind silence, and secrets always find their way out. If you're new here, this channel is all about the stories people are too afraid to tell, but today's story, it's different. It's about betrayal, power, and a woman who refused to break. Make sure you subscribe, because once you hear this, you won't forget it. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who would say this out loud. But my husband cheated on me. Not just with anyone, but with my assistant. And no, this isn't one of those stories where I found out, cried for weeks, and quietly walked away. I did something else. Something they never saw coming. Let me take you back to the beginning. I built everything from scratch. My company, my reputation, my life, it was all mine. Long nights, missed holidays, endless sacrifices. And through all of it, my husband was there. Or at least, I thought he was. He used to say he admired my ambition. Said he loved how driven I was. I believed him. I trusted him. That was my first mistake. The second mistake, hiring her. She was perfect on paper. Smart, efficient, polished. The kind of assistant every business owner dreams of. She anticipated my needs before I even spoke them. She stayed late without complaining. She handled pressure like it was nothing. I trusted her too, and that was my biggest mistake. Looking back, I can see the signs. The subtle ones. The way my husband suddenly took interest in my office. The way he'd drop by with coffee, asking if I needed anything. The way she'd smile a little too long when he walked in. The way their conversations lingered just a bit too much. But I didn't question it. Because I didn't want to. Because trusting them felt easier than doubting them. Until the day everything changed. It wasn't dramatic. No lipstick on a collar. No suspicious text messages lighting up a phone. It was quieter than that. A late evening at the office. Everyone had left, except me. I had a presentation the next morning. And I wasn't leaving until it was perfect. I remember getting up to grab a file from my assistant's desk. And that's when I saw it. Her phone, unlocked, buzzing. I didn't mean to look, but I did. One message. That's all it took. I miss you already. No name saved. Just a heart. And something inside me shifted. I shouldn't have opened the conversation. But I did that too. And there it was. Weeks, maybe months, of messages, inside jokes, late-night confessions, plans, pictures, and then the ones that made my hands shake. Messages from my husband. My husband. I didn't cry. Not then. Not even when I realized how long it had been going on. What I felt wasn't sadness, it was clarity. A cold, sharp clarity that cut through everything. They thought I was blind. They thought I was too busy, too distracted, too trusting. They thought they could have their little secret right under my nose. And for a moment, I almost let them. I almost walked away quietly. But then I asked myself one question. Why should I be the one who loses everything? Why should I be the one who walks away? When they were the ones who betrayed me. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to leave. I was going to stay. And I was going to take control. The next day, I acted like nothing had happened. I smiled at her. I kissed him goodbye. I went to work like everything was normal. And they believed it. That was the beauty of it. They believed I didn't know. Which meant I had the advantage. I started watching, listening. Paying attention to every detail. The timing of their messages. The excuses. The lies. The patterns. I learned everything. And once I understood how they operated, I started making changes. Small ones at first. I gave her more responsibility. Bigger projects. More access to company operations. She was thrilled. Of course she was. She thought it meant I trusted her even more. She didn't realize. I was setting the stage. At home, I did the same with him. I encouraged his involvement in the business, asked for his opinion, made him feel important, valued. He loved it. He thought he was finally becoming part of my world. He didn't realize he was walking into a trap. Weeks passed, then months, and slowly, everything shifted. The company structure changed. Ownership percentages, decision-making authority, contracts, legal documents, all perfectly legitimate, all signed willingly by both of them. They didn't read the fine print. Why would they? They trusted me, just like I had trusted them. Funny how that works, isn't it? By the time they realized something was off, it was too late. Everything they thought they had wasn't theirs. Not anymore. The company, under my control, fully, my assistant, bound by contracts she didn't fully understand, non-compete clauses, confidentiality agreements, performance conditions, and my husband, financially tied to the business in ways he couldn't escape without losing everything. I didn't scream. I didn't confront them with tears. I waited until the moment was right. It happened on a Friday. I called them both into my office. Together, they looked confused, nervous, but not scared. Not yet. I closed the door, sat down, and finally, I spoke. I know. 2 words. That's all it took. The silence that followed was deafening. They didn't deny it. They couldn't. The evidence was too clear. Instead, they looked at each other. And that was all the confirmation I needed. I should have felt anger, rage, but I didn't. I felt calm. Because I knew something they didn't. I wasn't the one who was about to lose everything. They were. I laid it all out. The contracts, the clauses, the consequences, every single detail, slowly, clearly, watching their expressions change, shock, confusion, fear, and finally, realization. They had underestimated me. They thought I was just the woman who built the company. They forgot I was also the woman who could protect it and protect myself. My assistant tried to speak, tried to explain, tried to apologize. I stopped her because I didn't want excuses. I wanted results. My husband, he looked broken, not because he felt guilty, but because he finally understood. He had lost completely, and that's when I told them what was going to happen next. They weren't leaving. Not yet. They were staying. Both of them, working under me, following my rules, my terms, my structure. Because if they didn't, they'd lose everything. Their careers, their reputations, their financial stability, everything they thought they were building together, gone. Just like that. They agreed. Of course they did. They had no choice. And from that day on, everything changed. The power shifted. They weren't partners in a secret anymore. They were employees, accountable, watched, controlled, and every single day, they had to face me. The woman they betrayed. The woman they underestimated. The woman who refused to be destroyed. Do you know what the hardest part was? Not the betrayal. Not the lies. Not even the moment I found out. It was watching them realize who I really was. Because they never truly knew me. They thought I was soft, trusting, predictable. They thought they could play me. But they were wrong. I didn't destroy them. I didn't expose them. I didn't ruin their lives. I did something worse. I made them live with what they did, every single day. Under my terms. Under my control. And in the end, that was the real consequence. Because betrayal doesn't always end in chaos. Sometimes, it ends in silence, power, and a lesson they'll never forget. So if you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever felt like you lost control, remember this. You don't have to break. You don't have to run. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is stay and take your power back. This is Her Secret Diaries, where the truth isn't pretty, but it's always real. I remember the exact way they looked at me in that moment, like everything they thought they knew had just shattered. My assistant's hands were trembling. She kept trying to speak, but no words came out. Her confidence, the same confidence that once impressed me, was gone. Completely gone. And my husband, he couldn't even look me in the eyes. That was new. Because for months, maybe longer, he had no problem lying straight to my face. But now the truth was sitting in the room with us. And it was suffocating. I leaned back in my chair, calm, composed, in control. "Let me make something very clear," I said, my voice steady. "This isn't a discussion. This is the reality you've created for yourselves." They stayed silent. Good, because silence meant they were finally listening. I slid the documents across the table. Neatly organized. Carefully prepared. Every signature. There's every clause. Binding. My assistant hesitated before picking them up. Her eyes scanned the pages faster and faster, like she was hoping she had misunderstood something. She hadn't. My husband didn't even try to read them. He already knew. "You've both benefited from my trust," I continued. "From my work. From everything I built. And instead of respecting that, you chose to betray it." I let that sit. Not because I needed to make them feel guilty, but because I wanted them to fully understand the weight of what they'd done. "This company doesn't just run on ideas," I said. "It runs on loyalty. On discipline. On knowing exactly where you stand." I looked directly at her. "And you forgot that then, at him. And you never understood it to begin with." That hit him harder than anything else. I could see it, because deep down, he always felt like he was standing in my shadow. And instead of building his own light, he chose to destroy mine. Bad decision. I stood up slowly, walking around the desk, not rushing, not raising my voice. They both shifted uncomfortably. Not because I was yelling, but because I wasn't. Calmness can be terrifying when someone expects chaos. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. I looked at my assistant, "will continue working here. But your role changes. You answer directly to me now. Every task, every decision, every report comes through me." She nodded quickly. Too quickly. "Fear does that. And you," I turned to my husband, "are now officially part of the business. On paper. Which means you're also accountable for everything tied to it." He frowned slightly. That was the first sign he didn't fully understand yet. "Good. Accountable how?" he asked quietly. I smiled, not kindly. "Financially, legally, professionally," I said. "If anything goes wrong, it doesn't just affect me anymore. It affects you too." That's when it clicked. And I saw the panic. Because now, walking away wasn't simple. It wasn't just about leaving a relationship. It meant losing everything tied to the business. Everything tied to me. "You trapped us," my assistant whispered. I tilted my head slightly. "No," I said. "You walked into it." Silence again. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing slightly. "This isn't right," he muttered. "You can't just." "I can." I cut him off. And I did. Another silence. But this one was different. He wasn't arguing anymore. He was calculating. Trying to find a way out. There wasn't one. Not without consequences he wasn't ready to face. And they both knew it. "Why are you doing this?" she asked suddenly, her voice shaking. "Why not just fire me? Leave him, end it." I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for a moment, I almost felt something. Not sympathy, but understanding. Because she still didn't get it. "You think this is about revenge?" I said softly. She didn't answer, but her expression said yes. I shook my head. "This is about balance," I said. "You both made choices that disrupted everything I built. I'm simply restoring order. That was the truth. As cold as it sounded. I wasn't interested in dramatic endings. I was interested in control. And control requires structure, not chaos. From this moment on, I continued, you follow my rules. You do your jobs. You maintain professionalism. And you keep your personal mistakes out of my business. And if we don't, my husband asked. I held his gaze. Then everything you've gained disappears. Simple, clear, final. The meeting ended without another word. They walked out of that office completely different people than the ones who walked in. And I stayed behind, alone. Finally, I sat down slowly, staring at the empty space where they had been. And for the first time since I found out, I let myself feel it. Not the anger, not the betrayal, but the weight. Because taking control doesn't erase what happened. It just changes how you carry it. The next few weeks were interesting. They avoided each other at first, which made things awkward, because their entire secret had been built on being together. And now, they couldn't even stand in the same room without tension. Good, that tension. It kept them focused. It kept them careful. And most importantly, it kept them under control. My assistant became different, less confident, more precise. She double-checked everything, triple-checked sometimes, not because she suddenly cared more, but because she was afraid to make mistakes. And fear, when managed properly, can be very effective. My husband, on the other hand, struggled. He wasn't used to structure, to accountability, to answering to someone else, especially not me. There were moments when I could see his frustration building. The way his jaw tightened, the way he hesitated before speaking, the way he looked at me like he wanted to say something, but knew better. Because now, I wasn't just his wife. I was the one holding everything together, including him, and that shift was something he couldn't ignore. One evening, he tried. We were at home, sitting in silence, the kind of silence that used to feel comfortable, but now felt heavy. This isn't sustainable, he said finally. I didn't look up from my laptop. What isn't? I asked calmly. This, he gestured vaguely. Us, the business, everything. I closed my laptop slowly. Now I looked at him. It's working, isn't it? I said. He hesitated, because he knew the answer. Yes, he admitted. But at what cost? I leaned back slightly. You should have thought about that before, I said. He flinched, just a little. But enough. I made a mistake, he said quietly. I almost laughed. A mistake. That's what he called it. Months of lying. Of betrayal. Reduced to a single word. I'm not interested in labels, I said. I'm interested in outcomes. And what outcome do you want? He asked. I held his gaze. Stability, I said. Control. And accountability. And us. He asked. There it was. The question he'd been avoiding. The one he didn't know how to ask. I paused. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I wanted him to feel the weight of it. There is no us right now, I said finally. That hit harder than anything else I had said. Because it was the truth. We weren't a couple. We were two people tied together by decisions and consequences. And until those consequences were fully lived through, there was nothing else. He nodded slowly, like he expected that answer. Like part of him already knew. Can that change? He asked. I looked away for a moment. Not because I was unsure, but because the answer wasn't simple. Maybe, I said, but not because you want it to. That was the difference. Before, everything was built on emotion, on trust, on love. Now, everything was built on actions, consistency, time, and whether or not he was capable of becoming someone different. The conversation ended there. Not dramatically, not loudly, just finished. And that became our new normal. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly, something unexpected happened. They changed. Not overnight, not perfectly, but noticeably. My assistant regained some of her confidence. But it was different now. Less careless, more aware, more respectful. She kept her distance. Professionally sharp, emotionally guarded. Exactly how it should have been from the beginning. My husband started showing up differently too. More disciplined, more involved, less reactive, more intentional. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't watching them out of suspicion. I was watching them out of evaluation. Because control isn't just about holding power. It's about knowing when that power has done its job. But that didn't mean I trusted them again. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Trust, once broken like that, doesn't come back easily. If it comes back at all. But respect, that was different. Respect can be rebuilt. Through actions. Through consistency. Through proving, over and over again, that you understand what's at stake. And they were trying. I'll give them that. They were trying. The real question was it enough? And more importantly, was it something I even wanted anymore? Because here's the truth, no one talks about when you take your power back, when you rebuild yourself, when you realize exactly what you're capable of. You don't always go back to what you had before. Sometimes you outgrow it. And that's where I found myself. Standing in a life that looked stable, controlled, structured, but no longer felt the same. Not because I was broken, but because I had changed. And once you change at that level, there's no going back to who you used to be, only forward, into something new, something unknown, something entirely yours. And that's where the real decision begins. Not about them, but about you. What you're willing to accept, what you're willing to rebuild, and what you're finally ready to leave behind. Because power isn't just about control over others. It's about control over your own choices. And for the first time in a long time, I had all of it. Every single piece. The question was, what was I going to do with it next?
That's all for today's story. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. This is Storyova, where your story matters. And I'll see you in the next one.